On this week's episode of the Irish History Boys, with me, Cormac Moore, and Tim McGarry, we discussed the fallout of the Irish Boundary Commission and the huge pressure on W.T. Cosgrave's government and the start of the Tripartite negotiations, which has left the border remaining as it is today.
November 27th, 1925. Baldwin, Cosgrave and Craig in conference. Mr. W.T. Cosgrave arrives in Dublin this morning after having two important conferences in London yesterday on the position created by the resignation of Dr. Eoin MacNeill from the Boundary Commission. After he and Sir James Craig had separately interviewed a number of British ministers, the Southern President and Northern Premier were brought together by the British Premier, Mr. Stanley Baldwin. The three remained in conference at 10 Downing Street for over 2 hours, after which Mr. Cosgrave went into Mr. Winston Churchill's official residence next door and had a conversation with the Chancellor of the Exchequer. The nature of the matters discussed at these consultations has not been allowed to transpire, both President Cosgrave and Sir James Craig steadily refusing to satisfy the demands of newspaper interviewers.
Hello and welcome to the Irish History Boys, with me, Cormac Moore.
And me, Tim McGarry. I read that beautifully, didn't I? Because I made that sound.
There was a bit of a slip up, though.
There was a bit of a slip up because Winston Churchill was in square brackets there, and I kind of didn't know whether to go square brackets or not, and then I decided most people know Winston Churchill.
You made a mess of it.
I made a mess of it. Yeah. But apart from that, I conveyed rather successfully, I thought.
The thrills. I'll give you that. The
thrills and the spills of the Boundary Commission. Of what is going to happen next, because let's explain for some of the people who may not know who the Baldwin, Cosgrave and Craig in conference, who these people are. The British Prime Minister,
Stanley Baldwin, Conservative Prime Minister.
W.T. Cosgrave, the head of the...
President of the Executive Council of the Irish Free State.
Basically, what equivalent now to the Taoiseach.
Exactly, yeah.
James Craig, we know, leader of Ulster.
Ireland, yeah.
And they're in conference. And why? What is going on? What is happening here?
Well, what happened was the Boundary Commission had met for guts of a year, but the award, or the proposed award, was leaked to a newspaper, the Morning Post, on November 7th. Furore kind of developed in border parts of Ireland. It led to the resignation of Eoin MacNeill, the Free State Commissioner, as Free State Commissioner. When it was found out that he actually knew all along what the award was going to be, he also had to resign from the Executive Council. So this was a crisis of high magnitude for the Free State government. It was the biggest crisis the government faced since the ending of the Civil War.
Right.
The award was abysmal for nationalists. You're going to have small parts of the north were going to go south. So you're going to have tiny bits of Tyrone, bit of Fermanagh, a decent chunk of South Armagh, including Crossmaglen, was going to go south. But, which was a real kicker for Cosgrave in particular, parts of the Free State were going to go north. Rich parts of East Donegal and parts of North Monaghan.
Right.
And that was completely unacceptable to him. It wasn't an abysmal award. It was totally against what nationalists had expected. They were expecting at the start of this process that huge chunks of Northern Ireland would go to the south, and the rest of it would be an unviable rump. But the award, or the forecast of the award, which was very close to the bone, showed that it was going to be only a tiny parts of transferred, and either way.
Right.
And like Newry, for example, had a 75% Catholic nationalist population, and it was not going to be transferred to the south.
So this is a big shock to the general public, shall we say? Unionists must be going, this is brilliant. I mean, James Craig's position all along is we've got our 6 counties where we don't want to transfer any territory. We don't want to lose any territory. They're actually losing tiny little bits, but getting some bits from the Free State, which they didn't even expect themselves. So the Unionists, it's a massive victory for Unionists.
Oh, completely.
You know? It's no surrender, not an inch. He doesn't have to give away. Literally, well, he may, according to the Boundary Commission, he gives away a few inches, but he gets a few inches back the other way.
Exactly. Yeah. It is arguably James Craig's biggest political victory,
right?
And he's played a blinder. Like, you know, in fairness, he had a better hand than the Free State had. He'd a lot of contacts in British government circles. He'd contacts in the British press, and he was able to wield them to his advantage over the couple of years before the Boundary Commission made its decision. and he played that role adeptly. So he was in a good position. What transpired.
So Northern Ireland's only created 5 years earlier in the Government of Ireland Act 1920.
Yeah, and it comes into being in May 21.
May 21, so literally 4.5 years earlier. But its existence and the size of Northern Ireland and the composition of Northern Ireland is always under threat, technically, because of this Boundary Commission, because of the Article 12 of the Anglo-Irish Treaty. So it was a sort of Damocles hanging.
Well, it was, and they hated it. Like, they were totally against the treaty. And the biggest problem they had with the treaty was this Boundary Commission.
Yeah.
Because they thought they had a final settlement under the Government of Ireland Act. They thought, okay, we've the 6 counties. Look, the British can have all the negotiations they want with Sinn Féin and the IRA, but leave us out of it.
Yeah.
We've got our 6 counties. We're happy with that. But then once the Boundary Commission is offered to Sinn Féin, parts of Northern Ireland are threatened again.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you can understand why they were against it. So it is hanging over them, but by the time... by this time, 4 years later, because their representative, even though the British government nominated Joseph R. Fisher, because the Northern government refused to be involved with the Boundary Commission, but Joseph R. Fisher was an Ulster Unionist. He was from County Down. He was editor of the Northern Whig newspaper. He was good friends with Edward Carson and James Craig. So he was informing Ulster Unionists all along what was happening. So they were, by the summer 25, they were in a good place. They knew that the changes were going to be so slight that it wasn't going to have any material difference to what the North was.
So Unionists knew that. The Free State government, and the general public didn't know that, but the Free State government is sitting going, well, we might get large chunks of Derry, we might get large chunks of Fermanagh.
Even though if they'd closely watched what was going on, they should have known they were in trouble, because the tour of the border in late 24 was only in border areas. A plebiscite was ruled out. So they really should have known by the end of 24. Things probably weren't going to go their way.
Weren't going to go. Northern Ireland, it's not a spoiler alert, because we kind of know. we don't know the outworkings of the tripartite agreement and stuff, but we know that Northern Ireland, as the 6 counties, is as it is today. So no land was transferred.
Now, one person or piece or an acre of land was transferred.
Not 1 acre, not an inch was given.
Not an inch.
James Craig can be very pleased with himself.
So at this juncture, when this conference begins, it is Cosgrave who asked for this conference, and he doesn't want Craig involved initially. He wants just to have conference with Stanley Baldwin. With the British government.
So Cosgrave's the head of the Free State government. They find out the Boundary Commission is absolutely disastrous. They're not getting any substantial land from the 6 counties to the 26 counties, and they have to give bits away, which is politically unacceptable. But to make matters worse, their representative seems to have agreed to this. So their power then, they can't go, oh look, this is a breach of the treaty. They can't go, oh, this Boundary Commission is a lot of nonsense. Because they had their own commissioner. He was there. He sat with them for a year, and he basically sold a pass.
He pretty much looks like he agreed to them. Or was not dissenting in any way. No minority report. No, this is a sham, this is a disgrace. It was only when the leak came out and there was a furore over the leak from the Morning Post that he has to resign. And then it's obvious that he has made their position from what was a very bad position into an almost cataclysmic position. So Cosgrave rushes over to London with panic in his eyes. And you can imagine Stanley Baldwin waiting and Craig. And Craig actually writes, he goes to London by himself. His wife is ill at the time. And he says, look, this is an important week, but I think I can get through the not an inch thing. So, he knows he's in a good place. He knows.
So Cosgrave is flying over to London, but he's got a pair of twos.
Probably a boat. I think he got a boat. There was not much flying going on at that stage.
Did you not get his helicopter? No. Sorry, yes. He very slowly rode over to London. But he's going to London with a pair of twos, because he can't argue that the Boundary Commission needs to be changed and we want Tyrone and we want Fermanagh.
Oh, that's gone.
That's not a starter.
That boat has sailed.
That boat has sailed.
That plane has flown.
He technically has to go. So his priorities are what? To stop bits of Donegal and Monaghan going north.
No, just to basically bury the report.
Bury the report completely.
And he said burn it. He actually said, I want it burned. All of the copies of that report burned.
Right.
That's what he said.
So but by saying that, he's accepting partition in the 6 county state is going to exist as a 6 county state.
Yeah, but he wants he wants something in return. Because if for example the boundary report was shelved and the North became permanently 6 counties. Partition was accepted, and he got nothing in return. That would have been the end of the government.
Right.
The government would have collapsed over that.
Yeah.
So he needs to get something in return. That's why he went over to London. Now,
What he wants in return is filthy lucre, money, dosh.
well,
Pay me off.
There actually were a couple of articles leading up to this. So when MacNeill resigned, you had like all of the opposition and newspapers obviously making a big deal of it. Like the Derry Journal described Eoin MacNeill's performance as, I think it used the words inertia, ineptitude. There's 3 I's anyway. I can't remember the third one. But Thomas Johnson, who was the official leader of the opposition, he was the leader of the Labour Party. He said there should be 2 resignations, Eoin MacNeill's and W.T. Cosgrave's.
Right.
And Eamon de Valera said, look, I told you this is going to happen anyway. The Boundary Commission was always going to be a sham. Wait till we get to the other commission, the Finance Commission, and we have to pay, I think it was £9 million a year. So £150 million under Article 5. This Article 5 basically stipulated that the Free State had to contribute towards imperial debt. Now, it was going to be done through arbitration. There were going to be people from the British Empire. The arbitrators had to be citizens of the British Empire, which would decide how much the Free State government have to pay. So this hadn't been decided yet, even though it's 4 years after the treaty. So this is a big financial headache over the Free State. So a couple of newspapers, particularly the Irish Times, had a few articles on, well, look, what probably could happen here is that Article 12 will be shelved, the boundary will remain as it is, but Article 5 will also be waived.
Right.
So the Free State will be free the huge financial burden.
So Cosgrave's under a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
There's actually a quote here in the article in the Irish News. It said because they were being chased by journalists because this was a big thing.
Yeah. That was the interesting discourse.
And Cosgrave was looking anxious about the situation, which is unquestionably one of extreme delicacy, and declined to make any statement. The Irish people are feeling very anxious about things, suggested a representative of the Press Association, questioningly, and Mr. Cosgrave replied with a weary smile, "I can assure you they do not feel more anxious than I do." That's a man under pressure.
He had the worries of the world on his shoulder. But he goes over. Now, look, to be fair to Cosgrave, he's in a position of, as you said, a pair of twos, if even that, And he's going over there. Like he knows that he's in a bad place, and he knows he's not in a good, strong position to negotiate. But he still goes over there, and he looks. The panic is in his eyes, and it's so obvious that he's panicking. So, like, what happens? This conference, or these conferences last from 26th of November on the 3rd of December, and it's Cosgrave. The 2 big players from the Irish side are Cosgrave and Kevin O'Higgins, and we'll discuss this more next week. But Kevin O'Higgins comes out of it okay. Right. He's a way better negotiator, and he's actually going. Like, he knows that the Free State is in a bad bind, but he says to the British government, "Okay, you don't help us in any way with this. Who's going to be in government? We're gone. We're out of government. So Republicans, the treaty's gone. Yeah. The Republicans are in government. Do you want that? He's actually, or should we bring this to the League of Nations? Because the Newry is the acid test.
Yeah.
And this hasn't been adhered to. Higgins says Newry's the acid test. This has not been awarded here. This is not a fair representation of the Boundary Commission. Should have been. We should go to the League of Nations, get some international jurisdiction on this. So at least he's shown a bit of fight,
which the British certainly don't want. They don't want.
No, they don't want that. Well, they've always said it's an intra-empire dispute, nothing to do with the League of Nations. But Cosgrave, on the other hand, he basically admits to, like Baldwin says, look, you're coming over here asking for the report to be shelved, and Cosgrave does ask for the Catholics in the north to be treated better, as in get rid of the specials. Get rid of PR, or sorry, he doesn't even ask for bring back PR, but he said get rid of specials and Catholics be better rights in the north. And Baldwin goes, well, you're no position really to ask anything. It's up to Craig to decide, because if the award had favoured you, would you have actually turned your back on it? Yeah. And Cosgrave, no, I wouldn't have. No, I would have kept it. So he was a very, and he lambasts MacNeill during the negotiations.
He slags off MacNeill.
Saying that he's put us in a bind, and he's should never have agreed to that award in the 17th.
Point at him. You acquitted him. Yeah.
His whole negotiation tactics are off now, and it gets worse. culminating into
Am I
a
right
tripartite
that
agreement.
bizarrely Cosgrave it was slightly helped by Craig, who's suggesting you go to the Brits and ask for some money, and Northern Ireland kind of going, this might be in our interest as well because we'll get some money off the Brits if there is a financial settlement that Craig has suggested to Cosgrave. A financial settlement may be the way forward here. We keep our 6 counties, you get a bit of money, a bit of financial relief, we get a bit of financial relief.
Definitely, yeah. So he was advised that because he wasn't going to move on improving Catholic rights. Like he never acknowledged that there was anything
Craig
wrong.
didn't,
yeah, there was anything wrong with the way Catholics are treated. So he even said privately to the British government cabinet ministers, said, look, you're not going to bob off these guys. That's the language used. You won't get a bob off Free State.
Yeah,
because they couldn't afford to pay his money. So like you can try and ask and you say you have to pay this money, but how are they going to afford it? You're never going to get any money. And even Edward Carson, speaking to the House of Lords at the time, while these negotiations were happening, saying you won't get any money off the Free State because what are you going to do? Are you going to go up to the Liffey and bomb them? Oh, you've already did that. But then you surrender to them. Are you going to destroy the customs house? Oh wait, that was already destroyed by the IRA. So you're not going to get any money off the Free State.
Yeah.
So they were going not just to the Free State government go for the waiving of Article 5. They're also saying to the British government waive Article 5. Oh, by the way, we need some money too. We need £4 million. So Churchill was Chancellor of the Exchequer at the time, and he was aghast at Craig looking for more money, which he found very typical of Craig, to always look for more money.
I told you before that the only thing that people in Northern Ireland or Protestant, Catholic and dissenter agree upon, let's get more money out of the Brits, and we're very good at getting it out of them.
Yeah.
Very good. So that goes back to the foundation of the states in the 20s.
Yeah.
The Brits are always been, that we've got the begging bowl out, but Craig has got the begging bowl out to pay for the B special, to pay for this,
Exactly.
that, and the other,
Yeah.
and all sorts of things. So he's looking for more money as well.
He's looking for more money. He also said, like, if there was to be transfer of people and territory, that the Protestants to move to the south would get compensated. And then they said the Catholics to move to the south and the Protestants came over to the north from the south, they would take the property of the Catholics that left the other way.
Right.
So there was this kind of swap he was talking about as well. But I need $4 million to do that. so there was, this was going on at these negotiations. So Churchill was saying, I'm not in favour of this at all. Like the British public will not accept it. I know I'm going to get the same from the Free State as well about waiving Article 5. Yeah. I'm not in favour of that either. So this is the start of negotiations, and it's just Cosgrave. Cosgrave has just gone over himself. And to basically have the report shelved. He doesn't want Craig involved, but as I said, Baldwin said, like, we can't kind of have an agreement over Craig's head. You're the one in trouble here, not Craig. And Craig is asked, what do you want? Do you want the report shelved, or will you accept the award? And he goes, I could take one or the other. He doesn't.
Yeah.
And he tells his wife, to be honest, I probably would go with not an inch.
Yeah.
Keep 6 counties. But it didn't matter that much either way. Both were decent outcomes.
And politically, it wouldn't have harmed him that much, would it?
No, I think it would have benefited him. He would have got rich parts of North Monaghan and East Donegal and got rid of South Armagh.
Yeah.
Afghanistan. so it's there was definitely pros for Ulster Unionists in the new border that would have.
When you say Afghanistan, you mean some Unionists described it as Afghanistan.
Exactly. J.R. Fisher.
That's not a pejorative from today. This is Unionist because
J.R. Fisher.
The Brits are always fighting in Afghanistan and always losing, weren't they?
Yeah. So J.R. Fisher actually described that when before he was actually commissioner. He actually felt he wrote into the Times of London a few articles about the Boundary Commission.
Right.
After it was going to be formed from 22 onwards, and he said that it'd be good to get Donegal or parts of Donegal, get the places that want to be with us, and get rid of the places that don't want to be with us.
Yeah.
So that's what he was very happy with the award. So I think a lot of unions would have been happy as well. Can you imagine if Crossmaglen or South Armagh weren't in the north?
Yeah.
Could that have changed the trajectory of the troubles in that area in particular,
Absolutely.
or would there have been another area that would have taken its place? Who knows, but yes, so Cosgrave goes over in a moment of unbelievable weakness, and he's such a bad negotiator as well, which compounds it. It's so obvious that, and he telegraphs everything to the British government and to Craig. He can't hide his emotions. He can't negotiate. Professionally, diplomatically. He just it's so obvious that he's in a weak place, and they play him like a fiddle.
Right.
So Craig, he doesn't want to have a conference with Craig, but Baldwin says you have to. The only way we can get this work is if Craig agrees as well. We're not going to do anything without Northern Ireland's consent. Because we forced this on a very unhappy Ulster.
Yes, that's right. They didn't want this boundary commission.
Yeah, so we can't do a deal behind their backs that they're not happy with. So they have to be fully engaged. So Cosgrave concedes that. So then there's a conference between Baldwin, Cosgrave, and Craig. This is the first day, and Craig, Craig offers, do you know what I'll do? The border remains as it is, and I'll release 30 prisoners. That's it. And Cosgrave says no to that, and he goes back home. And then he brings the big gun of Kevin O'Higgins.
So you're telling me that the Free State government's run by W.T. Cosgrave, who appointed Eoin MacNeill, who's turned out to be bucking useless, and Cosgrave himself is, well, bucking useless.
Yeah.
So where the Free State's in a poor position here. Really. Right. Yeah. Because there was an Irish News editorial this very week as well, because MacNeill has just resigned and he's made a statement that kind of excuses himself, but it seems nobody's really buying it. Nobody's really buying his excuse. The Irish News says the professor's speech calls for little comment outside the Free State. It was, in essence, a confession of his failure to fulfil his obligations to his colleagues on the Executive Council and to the people of the country who depended on the Executive Council's assurances that their interests had been entrusted to the hands of a capable and thoroughly reliable representative. And it says, that concludes, it was a confusing explanation. The professor merely proved that his selection as a commissioner was a grim mistake on the part of the Free State government. A grim mistake.
I know, yeah. And the Irish News would have been so much sympathetic because the Irish News didn't put a lot of great store in the Boundary Commission. Yeah. And most of its readers at the time would have been, now it's a national, actually an international newspaper that has readers all over the world. But,
and online.
And online, yeah. But at the time, it would have been mainly Belfast, East Ulster.
Right.
Because there would have been a lot of strong local newspapers around the border areas.
Yeah.
But so regardless of the outcome of the Boundary Commission, it was probably going to be bad news for East Ulster anyway.
Yeah.
If it was a generous award, generous award for nationalists, it meant that there were going to be less nationalists left in Northern Ireland.
So, but even if you're a nationalist, so even a smaller minority than
exactly,
right.
And a more secure permanent territory. We wouldn't be talking about a border poll if there's only 4 counties left in the north, for example. So the Irish News is always kind of lukewarm. So even it was very critical of MacNeill, and he would have been a sympathising voice towards MacNeill, more so than other newspapers would have been.
Right.
So look, they're in an awful bind, and Cosgrave gets nothing basically from Craig, and so he goes back to Dublin with his tail between his legs, and then O'Higgins goes over to Chequers. He goes over to Chequers.
And that's to see the Prime Minister. That's where the Prime Minister hangs out.
I think David Lloyd George was the first Prime Minister to have Chequers as a country a retreat for the Prime Minister.
Winston Churchill is Chancellor of the Exchequer this team.
He's Chancellor of the Exchequer. So the British Churchill has a very interesting a few years from the treaty to the Boundary Commission. So he was in the Liberal Party at the time of the treaty.
Yes.
And then he leaves the Liberal Party.
Joins the Conservatives.
But he's not into Conservatives for a while because he's seen as a traitor by many Conservatives. Obviously, he left the Conservatives in the early 1900s to join the Liberals. But even he's seen, and many of the signatories on the British side of the treaty are seen as treasonous, as traitors.
Because they surrendered to the murder gang.
Yeah, a lot of that, and the Boundary Commission as well is seen as given into the Sinn Féin, given into the
diehard Tories and all.
The diehard Tories are on the ascendancy. So the ones who signed the treaty can't get a look in, so they all have to grovel, like Birkenhead, Austin Chamberlain, and Churchill. So and he finds it hard to get a constituency in a conservative leaning place.
All right.
And he finally gets one. I think Epping is the place he gets constituency. And he gets elected in November 1924. Conservatives win a majority, and Baldwin makes him Chancellor of the Exchequer. So by a year later, he's still Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Right.
So he's heavily involved in all of this because he's the money man, and it does come down to money to a large degree. But O'Higgins goes over to which I think McGilligan goes over. Patrick McGilligan, who's a cabinet minister as well, but it's mainly O'Higgins doing all the talking. And he's very, like, the first part of that negotiations, when he starts, he's talking to Baldwin and a couple of other cabinet ministers, Leo Amory, Johnson Hicks, the Home Secretary, and he puts in a good performance. You know, he talks about Newry being the acid test. He talks about the way Catholics are treated up in the north, and he specifically says that, you know, we as a government cannot survive this if we just give up the border as it is and get nothing in return. That's our government gone.
Yeah.
Are you going to take up the pieces, Britain? You know.
Yeah.
You know, we will have, and you expect us to go and sell this as a good deal when we'll be lying, because it's not a good deal. This is not the way this boundary commission was envisaged by us. Newry is the acid test. We need something in return. I want amelioration of the conditions for Catholics. We want to get rid of the specials. We want reintroduction of PR. That's what he was looking for.
Right.
And Tom Jones, who was a secretary of the cabinet at the time, who had been a secretary of Lloyd George during the treaty negotiations, he's got a wonderful diary called the Whitehall Diaries, and really, really great information on the treaty negotiations, on the boundary commission discussions. Like, it is a wonderful document. He said that everyone was blown away by O'Higgins. You know,
Right.
the really strong, heartfelt performance he gave.
Was he a lawyer or something? What was he?
Yeah, he was a trained lawyer.
See?
Yeah.
You see, you should have brought him.
Are you a lawyer?
Yes, you see, always bring the lawyer. Bring the lawyer. Where was
So anyone who is having a negotiation, bring Tim McGarry in the future. You know?
I'm out of it a long time, but I'm still prepared to give it a go. So Higgins, like, you should have been there in 21 when the bloody thing was agreed.
Yeah, but he was
place.
only on the rise then. Like, he was
Yeah.
he was beginning to make his mark all right in 21.
Right.
But he performs well. But then
It's a bit of a weak argument, though. Like, if you don't agree to us, we're going to collapse in a heap. And well, I suppose
I don't think it is. I think it's a good argument.
Kind of,
Look, what do they have? Like,
Yeah,
they don't have many cards, you know.
Yes.
So this is actually a good one. We go, because it's a big mess for Britain, because it's going to bring back the Irish question again.
Yeah.
You have the pro-treaty party gone.
Yeah.
Collapse. You're going to have a Republican government replace him. That means the treaty is gone.
Yeah.
The oath is gone. So, you know, that is your
back
problem
to
now.
war.
That's your problem now, Britain. You know. So
Yeah.
what are you going to do? So then Craig gets involved, and actually, interesting. While this negotiation is happening, Bordillan, FB Bordillan, is the secretary of the Boundary Commission. He comes in to Chequers with
Bordillan.
Bordillan, Bourdillon,
Right.
FB Bordillan. He was the secretary of the
Is that
Boundary
not a
Commission.
French cheese or something?
Well, maybe a French cheese as well, but he was a man too. And
Right, okay.
he was an Oxford Don,
Right.
and he also was I think he was involved in some boundary commissions in Europe. But he was secretary of the commission. He was a very important person as well, very close to Feetham. But he comes while this negotiations are happening. He comes in to Chequers, gives the award to Baldwin, and Baldwin goes to Higgins. Oh, actually, the award is different from the Morning Post. Do you want to see it? No, I've no interest in seeing it. If Newry's not coming into Free State, there's no interest in the kind of little
Right.
nooks and crannies. And he actually says, you think this boundary commission, and this is what your press has claimed, and your politicians have claimed over the last few years, that this was, you know, a bulge here, a dinge there, like, you know. This was for us. We would not have agreed to boundary commission without huge transfer of land and territory from the north to the south, and not a way around. You know, this was not about rectification of the border. We never would have agreed to this, you know. So he performs well, but then he has a conference separately with and it's very tense, because he starts accusing Craig of mistreating Catholics, and the specials are out of control. They've lost their electoral rights. You know, there's a lot of gerrymandering.
Yep.
And Craig says, "How dare you? There's no piece of evidence to back any of this." So then Baldwin's wife kind of intervenes, and she actually sits between Craig and O'Higgins at lunchtime, and she said, I can't remember. She said some funny things. I'm not going to be the bone of contention. I'm rather too plump for that.
Right.
Try to lighten the mood a bit. So then Craig and O'Higgins go off together for a conference, and O'Higgins gets nowhere with Craig. Craig is
Right.
not giving an inch, not an inch on Catholic rights.
Right, okay.
So then Craig suggests to Higgins, what about Article 5? Pin your hopes on that.
Right. Okay.
And Craig also asked, can we get rid of the Council of Ireland as well? He doesn't like the Council of Ireland. And Higgins didn't like the Council of Ireland either. So he was, look, I'll bring it to the Cabinet, Executive Council, and we see how it goes.
Okay. So you have, you see, in modern parlance, your Republicans, your diehard Chinners would go, the Free State sold us a pup and basically abandoned us for money.
Yeah, well, no.
Is
That next episode now, we won't spoil it completely. You know,
What?
This is only the start of negotiations.
Is Newry in the Republic? When was it? Why wasn't I told?
You weren't
the
told.
next week's
You weren't told.
episode,
Well, no,
Newry is transferred to the.
we want to talk about the final, because it actually does get quite juicy the last day or two of the negotiations, particularly Cosgrave. Cosgrave comes out of it so badly.
Right.
And, I think we should leave that until next episode.
Okay, we will leave that.
We want to
until
talk about a
next segment.
tripartite agreement. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
When it actually happens. But this is the start of this week-long negotiation.
Right.
The first couple of days. And O'Higgins has put in a good performance, but then when it comes to try and convince Craig, and Craig knows he goes, right, I'm not doing this, we'll just have to go with the award.
Yeah.
And Free State has to go, okay, right, we'll have to go with the award. So Craig's just, he's in such a strong position. Like he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to help the Free State. All he can say is, look, the Boundary Commission met, it functioned the way it was meant to under the treaty. There is an award there. We'll go with the award. And the Free State would have actually accepted, you know.
You're listening to the Irish History Boys with me, Tim McGarry, and Dr. Cormac Moore, discussing the Boundary Commission, which, ladies and gentlemen, next week reaches its next episode, not next week.
Stay tuned.
Because it's the podcast you can listen whenever the
Can
hell
you do
want.
the EastEnders music?
Yes, the exciting and dramatic climax to the Boundary Commission.
The Boundary Commission followed.
Yes.
Episode 3.
It's like a wedding in EastEnders. It's one of those sort of things. Yeah.
Do you watch EastEnders?
A wedding? No, I've never seen an episode of EastEnders in my entire life.
Okay, right.
I've never seen an episode. But it's apparently it is quite dramatic, but not as dramatic as the Boundary Commission.
Absolutely not.
If you'd like to contact the Irish History Boys, please send us an email at theirishhistoryboys@gmail.com, because you can send emails, you can send comments, you can ask questions, can't you? You can ask questions of the Irish History Boys.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions?
Well, we've got a comment. As much as
comment?
a question, and in fact, this might be someone we've heard from before. Alan Moore writes in, and he writes purely to Cormac in this instance.
Oh, thanks, Alan.
That's appropriate. Yeah, that makes sense.
Dear Cormac, he says, I attended St Patrick's Boys National School, Drumcondra, from 1974 to 82, close to Lemons. That's, I think, the sweet factory. Is that right?
Yeah.
And remember it well. They had many employees who lived on Milmont Avenue, Drumcondra.
Yeah.
And they used to give a large box of boiled sweets to each class in St Pat's in December as a Christmas present. The teachers also received presents from them, and they were very well thought of as fair employers in the local area.
Yeah, well, I have a book actually just out,
What?
co-written by Alan Tate.
What a coincidence.
His dad and granddad.
You've a
were
book
managing
like about
directors.
lemons.
It's a beautiful book.
Right.
It actually is a beautiful Christmas present. About over 200 images.
Right.
The Lemons factory in Drumcondra, the shop on O'Connell Street. It's a huge part of Dublin's history. Anyway, did you ever get Lemons sweets in Belfast? No, or
Don't
Season's
remember.
Greetings. A picture of Santa Claus on the box. Are they not?
Maybe the sort of thing you picked up when you went across the border.
Yeah, but they're like massive company in the south. Now the factory in Drumcondra closed in '83, but the brand is still there. You can still get
Right.
Season's Greetings
Right.
sweets. But lemons were very high quality sweet. They weren't the cheapest, but they were a lovely present, a lovely Christmas present.
Right.
Lemon sweets.
And they all boiled sweets.
No, the chocolate as well, but different jellies as well.
Right.
But different types of confectionery. But like the Queen Victoria was a fan of lemon sweets. So was Pope
And the
Leo
lemons
XIII.
were Irish. What's the background
Do you know where
of the
they're
lemon
from?
family?
From Graham Lemon, from Mount Norris in Armagh.
Right.
Grew up in Belfast.
Oh, right.
His first shop was in Belfast, in Donegal Street. And one of the people he catered for in Belfast was Frederick Douglass.
Frederick
The
Douglass,
famous,
right.
anti-slavery
We have
lecturer.
a statue of him in Belfast now.
Yeah, because he toured Ireland and
Yeah.
Britain like 1845, 1846. But while he was in Belfast, Miss Graham Lemon gave her them confectionery.
All right, so
then he moved to
sweets
Dublin.
supplied to.
And cakes. He was doing cakes and preserves and all that at the time. But then he moved down to Dublin and there's a shop. You can still see the sign, the Confectioner's Hall.
Right.
It's on Lower O'Connell Street, just before you go over O'Connell Bridge.
Right.
And you can still see Confectioner's Hall. That was the lemon shop, basically.
Right.
So he moved in there in the late 1840s.
So a big company, and they
Big company,
employed loads of people, and
Yeah, it's a massive employer in Drumcondra.
Right.
So, and a lot of women workers as well. You know, they'd be a huge employer of women in the local area. Very, very popular company.
right.
But yeah, it was a very, very sad day when they closed down in '83.
And is your book for general sale as well as a Christmas present?
It's for general sale, absolutely.
Obviously. Oh, wow, I'm delighted.
But it's a beautiful book. We've over 200 images.
Right.
Some of them are absolutely stunning now. It's a beautiful book. It's a great story. It's just the whole story. It's like he owned, there's a Lemon Street just off Grafton Street, named after Graham Lemon. He owned the building that the Gaiety was when it was founded.
The Gaiety Theatre.
So they were his tenants, the Gunn brothers. He set it up. James Connolly was a tenant of his.
Right.
So it is a great story, and as I said, it's lavishly illustrated. But thanks, Alan, for that memory. And I'd say that was a very nice treat for the kids in school, getting a box of sweets.
Yeah, we get
Christmas
nothing.
time.
We get nothing.
We get nothing.
No,
In Emo. I remember we had Emo in Laois, where I'm from. EMO.
Is that where you're from?
Yeah.
Is that a place?
Emo, yeah.
Is it?
Yes, Emo, yeah.
Never heard of emo.
EMO, that's where I'm from in Laois.
Oh, really?
So we got nothing in primary school. In secondary school, I went to Port Laois, and there was a...
You didn't even get a proper name.
There was a tennis factory, tennis ball factory, Traytorn. And at the back to factory, they used to have actually probably really good tennis balls, but just, the writing wasn't proper, so they just threw them out.
Right.
So that's the only free stuff we used to get, was free tennis balls at the back of the Traytorn factory. No sweets, something like that. Bertie Hearn grew up close to Lemons.
Right.
And he in his autobiography, he talks about bundling after the broken toffee or the broken chocolates outside Lemons factory.
Right.
As kids.
Oh, right. Oh,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Well, I will look forward to that. Your book on Lemons, and he came from Belfast.
Well, he came from Mount Norris in Armagh, but they grew up. Yeah, he grew up in Belfast. Okay. Yeah.
Have we time for one last thing, or what are we like?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask? We'll go back to 1975.
Yeah, please do.
Because 1975, because as you know, the Irish History Boys, we discuss stories that appear in the Irish News 100 years ago and 50 years ago. And this is a story that internment is still an issue. If you even mention the word internment now, it'll have a popular folklore. Most people will remember.
It's a current topic as well. Do you know that Gerry Adams is obviously looking for compensation for internees, and Keir Starmer is saying we're not going to give any compensation to the likes of Gerry Adams. So it still is a current topic.
It was introduced in 1971 by the Stormont government of Brian Faulkner as an attempt to stop the violence
and to keep Stormont afloat.
And to keep Stormont afloat because they were coming under pressure from the right wing, going, what are you doing about the IRA in particular? And the internment is, of course, arrest and imprisonment without trial. So there's no need for a trial. And when internment first happened, even though there was a lot of loyalist violence, every single person lifted was a Catholic nationalist. Yeah. They got a lot of the wrong people. They got a lot of innocent people. The main IRA people, I remember the press conferences and stuff saying, ha, we got away with it. But internment lasted for about 4 years. The Stormont fell very quickly after internment, within a year. March 72. Here we are in 1975. And the internment has been described at the SDLP annual conference as the Provost's greatest propaganda weapon. Mr. McAllister from Newry said it had been rightly be called the Provisional IRA's greatest propaganda weapon. It was also barbaric and anti-human, but it must be remembered it must never be endured again. And the SDLP very strongly opposed to, of course, internment. But it was coming to a close when even the British were recognising this was kind of a counterproductive, shall we say.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. It actually was a great recruiting ground for the IRA.
Well, the violence increased dramatically after internment was
the membership of the IRA increased dramatically as well because of internment. It turned off people who perhaps were in favour of constitutional nationalism towards the Provisional campaign.
Yeah.
And also, even those were interned, it kind of became a university, of revolution for those internees. So, and then we saw, some of them become very highly involved in the IRA and in the prison system during the hunger strikes and so on as well.
Yeah.
It completely backfired. It was a terrible strategy. As you said, it was completely arbitrary as well. It was only against one community. Initially, no, I think they started interning loyalists.
They did, and there was a backlash from loyalists going, how dare you even
do that?
Good Lord, what's this internment for Protestants?
But the numbers for loyalists were tiny, always
compared
to so-called Republicans.
Yeah.
And Merrill's Rees, Merlin Rees, the Secretary of State at the time, he had promised to get rid of it, and he was kind of phasing it out for much of 75. Like the Irish News had a number of editorials in the latter half of 75 saying, look, we just get it over with.
Yeah.
What's the idea of just dribs and drabs of
Well, the
letting people out?
Irish News and the SDLP are saying, oh, it's a dreadful attack on human rights and all of that, and which it is. But at the same time, it had been used successfully by many governments, including the south of Ireland. And during the War of Independence and various times.
Civil War.
During the Civil War.
Civil War, 13,000
during the Second
people
World War. The Second World War, Republicans just rounded up and interned. And
But in Civil War, after the Civil War, like there was 13,000 men and women interned. That's a huge amount of people, and some of them were arrested after the Civil War.
Yes,
there's De Valera, for example, was arrested after the Civil War ended. So
let me play devil's advocate. I mean, Brian Faulkner, if the intelligence had been right and that got the right people, it could have worked.
Perhaps it could have. Yeah. No, I think
they did get some senior Republicans.
The biggest.
Jerry Adams apparently was interned. Of course, he had nothing to do with anything, obviously. But there were certain. They did get some senior Republicans, but they did get a lot of people who were completely innocent, and their intelligence was.
And the way they were treated, like the British Army were involved as well, and they're dragging them from their beds by their hair and all that night in August when they start. Like, what was it 9th? Was it 9th, 11th, or something of August?
9th of August.
9th of August in 71, and. Dragging in front of beds. Just the optics of it were awful as well. I agree with you. If it was tailored and it was very specific, the intelligence was good. They could have got away with it, because it was so discriminatory. Because it was only against one community and brutal. It just was a PR disaster for them, and it did. It instead of actually stopping the violence, it escalated the violence.
Yeah.
And even dramatically escalated the violence.
You had the hooded men as well, sort of the internal.
Hooded men as well,
tortured and stuff, and some of them were they were innocent men as well. And you just go,
but even if they were guilty, there's no way you should treat people like the way they were treated, like hooded men were. But and then also the Bloody Sunday, that's directly related. It was a peaceful march against internment, So all of these things were snowballing and just making it from one disaster to another. So it was a PR disaster. It was a military disaster. It just wasn't. It was never going to have a desired outcome because of the way it was started. So you're right. If it was planned more carefully, the intelligence is better. It wasn't done so brutally.
So internment was not invented.
If it targeted loyalists and Republicans, I think there would have been some opposition to it, and maybe quite fierce in some ways. But I don't think you would have had the public hostility to it that you had, nor the condemnation from Europe and international bodies like Amnesty and so on. Yes, there would still have been an element of that, but not to the extent that that happened.
Well, here we are in November 1975, and it's being phased out slowly. I think the last internees were released in the end of 75.
Yeah, the following week.
The following week, and then that's the power of an SDLP conference, I think they would say. And then very quickly we run into another problem in the prisons, which is the removal of political status.
Yeah, and the dirty protests.
How that will end up. We may discuss in future episodes of the Irish History Boys. It's been a pleasure as always, Cormac.
As always.
As always. As I say, if you want to question us or leave a comment, send an email to the Irish History Boys at gmail.com. In the meantime, we will see you next time.
Until next time.